She had the voice of an angel, soft, warm, perfect. When Karen Carpenter sang, the whole world stopped to listen. But while millions fell in love with her music, Karen was slowly disappearing. On February 4th, 1983, at just 32 years old, Karen Carpenter's heart stopped beating. Her death shocked the world, but what killed her wasn't a disease. It was something she did to herself. This is the story of the voice that faded away, the story of a woman who gave everything to her music, but couldn't save herself. Karen Carpenter was born on March 2nd, 1950 in New Haven, Connecticut. She was the younger of two children. Her older brother, Richard, was musical, talented, and driven. Karen was quieter, sweeter, the one who stayed in the background. But even as a little girl, Karen had something special. When she was young, her family moved to Downey, California, a quiet suburb of Los Angeles. It was there that Karen's life would change forever. At first, Karen didn't sing. She played the drums, and she was good, really good. Her brother Richard played piano, and together they started making music. But it wasn't long before someone noticed Karen's voice. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic. It was something else, something pure. When Karen sang, people didn't just hear the notes, they felt them. In 1969, Karen and Richard signed their first record deal. They called themselves the Carpenters, and in 1970, they released a song that would change their lives forever. We've Only Just Begun. It became a hit. Then another, and another. Songs like Close to You, Rainy Days and Mondays, Top of the World. Karen's voice was everywhere, on the radio, on TV, in every home across America. She was just 20 years old, and she was already a star. The 1970s belonged to the Carpenters. They sold millions of records. They won Grammy Awards. They performed for presidents. Karen Carpenter became one of the most recognizable voices in the world. But there was something different about Karen. She wasn't like other stars. She didn't want the spotlight. She didn't crave attention. She just wanted to make music. On stage, she often played the drums while she sang, something almost no other female artist did at the time. She was shy, humble, always smiling. Fans loved her, critics loved her. Even other musicians admired her talent. Ella Fitzgerald once said Karen Carpenter had one of the best voices she'd ever heard. But behind the scenes, something was starting to go wrong. Karen was always the nice one, the one who didn't cause problems, the one who did what she was told. Her brother Richard was the creative force. He arranged the music, made the decisions. Karen just sang. And slowly, quietly, Karen started to feel invisible. She was famous, beloved, successful, but inside she felt like she wasn't enough. The pressure started small, a comment from a journalist, a photograph in a magazine where the lighting made her look heavier than she was, a passing remark from someone in the industry about watching her figure. In 1973, during a concert tour in Lake Tahoe, Karen happened to read a review of one of their performances. The critic praised the music, praised her voice, but added one line that would haunt her for years. Karen Carpenter looks a little chunky on stage. Just one sentence, one careless comment in hundreds of positive reviews. But Karen couldn't shake it. She read it again. And again. She started looking at herself differently, in mirrors, in photographs, on television screens. Where others saw a beautiful, healthy young woman, Karen began to see flaws, imperfections, weight that wasn't even there. She started cutting back on meals, just a little at first, a smaller portion here, skipping breakfast there. She told herself she was being disciplined, taking control, being professional. Her family noticed she was losing weight, but in the beginning, no one was alarmed. Lots of performers watched what they ate. It was part of the entertainment business. Karen seemed fine. She was still performing, still recording, still smiling. But inside, something had shifted. By 1974, Karen's relationship with food had become a daily battle. She would eat tiny amounts and then feel guilty. She would exercise for hours, pushing her body past exhaustion. She counted every calorie, scrutinized every meal, weighed herself constantly. The number on the scale became an obsession. It was never low enough. She was never thin enough. In her mind, if she could just lose a little more weight, she would finally feel good enough, pretty enough, worthy enough. But the goal kept moving. 95 pounds wasn't enough. 90 pounds wasn't enough. 85 pounds wasn't enough. This was 1975. The world didn't talk about eating disorders yet. The term anorexia nervosa existed in medical journals, but most people had never heard it. There were no support groups, no public awareness campaigns, no celebrities speaking openly about their struggles. Karen didn't even realize she was sick. She thought she was just being careful, being good, staying in control. Her mother, Agnes, tried to encourage her to eat more, but she didn't understand what was happening. Her father, Harold, worried quietly, but didn't know how to help. Richard saw his sister getting thinner and thinner, but when he expressed concern, Karen would smile and say she was fine. Everyone around her felt helpless. They could see something was wrong, but nobody knew what to do about it. Meanwhile, the Carpenters' career continued. They released album after album. Yesterday once more, Please Mr. Postman, Only Yesterday, hit after hit. But behind every performance, behind every recording session, Karen was struggling to stand, struggling to breathe, struggling to keep going. In 1975, during a performance in Las Vegas, Karen collapsed on stage. She was rushed to the hospital, where doctors discovered she was severely malnourished and dehydrated. They told her she needed to rest, to eat, to take care of herself. She promised she would. But within weeks, she was back on the road, back in the studio, and back to her old habits. By 1978, Karen Carpenter weighed less than 80 pounds. Her face was gaunt. Her arms were so thin you could see every bone. Her hair, once thick and shiny, had started to thin and fall out. Her skin was pale and dry. When she stood up too quickly, she felt dizzy. When she performed, she had to lean on the microphone stand for support. But she kept working. She kept smiling. She kept pretending everything was fine. In interviews, when reporters asked about her weight, she would laugh it off. "I'm just naturally thin," she would say. Or, "I've always been small." She deflected, changed the subject, refused to admit there was a problem. But people were starting to notice. Fans wrote letters expressing concern. Journalists wrote articles questioning her health. Other musicians whispered backstage. And Karen's body was beginning to fail. Her heart, weakened by years of starvation, began to struggle. Her blood pressure dropped dangerously low. Her immune system couldn't fight off infections. Simple colds would knock her out for weeks. In 1979, the Carpenters were forced to cancel their tour. Richard checked himself into a rehabilitation facility for his own struggles with prescription medication, and Karen, for the first time in years, was alone. She spent months in isolation, living quietly in her apartment in Century City. She saw almost no one. She barely left the house. And during those long, empty days, something inside her began to crack. She looked at herself in the mirror, and for the first time in years, she saw the truth. She wasn't thin, she wasn't healthy, she was dying. In February 1982, Karen finally agreed to seek help. She flew to New York City and checked into a treatment program led by psychotherapist Stephen Levenkron, one of the few specialists in the country who understood eating disorders. For the next several months, Karen worked with doctors, therapists, and nutritionists. She attended therapy sessions every day. She started eating regular meals again. Slowly, painfully, she began to gain weight. It was the hardest thing she had ever done. Every bite of food felt like a battle. Every pound she gained felt like failure, even though she knew intellectually it was progress. But she kept going. She wanted to get better. She wanted to live. By late 1982, Karen had gained nearly 30 pounds. She looked healthier. Her cheeks had color again. Her hair was growing back. She seemed happier, more hopeful. Her family was relieved. Richard was thrilled to see his sister smiling again. Their parents believed the worst was over. Karen returned to California in November 1982, ready to restart her life and her career. She talked about making a new album, about touring again, about the future. But the damage had already been done. Years of starvation had weakened her heart beyond repair. And even though she was eating again, even though she was trying to recover, it was too late. February 4th, 1983. Karen woke up early that morning at her parents' house in Downey. She had been staying with them for a few weeks, resting, spending time with family. She seemed to be doing well. She had plans to meet friends later that day. She was talking about the future. That morning, she got dressed and walked into her closet to choose an outfit. And then, without warning, her heart stopped. Karen collapsed on the floor. Her mother, Agnes, heard the sound and rushed into the room. She found Karen unconscious, not breathing. Agnes screamed for Harold. He called 911. Paramedics arrived within minutes. They performed CPR. They rushed her to Downey Community Hospital. They tried everything: defibrillation, medications, manual chest compressions. But Karen's heart had been weakened for too long. It simply gave out. At 9:51 a.m., just 32 years old, Karen Carpenter was pronounced dead. The official cause of death was cardiac arrest caused by complications from anorexia nervosa. Her heart, starved of nutrients for years, had finally stopped beating. The news spread quickly. Radio stations interrupted their programming to announce her death. Television networks broke into regular broadcasts. Fans around the world were devastated. How could this happen? How could someone so young, so talented, so loved be gone? But more than shock, there was confusion. What was anorexia nervosa? Why hadn't anyone helped her? Why hadn't she just eaten? Most people didn't understand. Eating disorders weren't talked about in 1983. They weren't in movies or TV shows. There were no awareness campaigns or celebrity spokespeople. Karen's death changed that. Suddenly the world had to confront a disease that had been hiding in the shadows. Doctors began studying it. Therapists began treating it. Families began recognizing the warning signs. Karen Carpenter's death wasn't just a tragedy. It was a turning point in how the world understood mental health and eating disorders. Karen was laid to rest at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Cypress, California. Thousands of fans lined the streets for her funeral. Her family, heartbroken, established the Karen A. Carpenter Memorial Foundation to fund research into anorexia nervosa and eating disorders. Richard Carpenter was devastated. He later said that losing Karen was the worst thing that ever happened to him. "She had the best voice I ever heard," he told reporters, "and I miss her every single day." In the years after her death, Karen's story was told in books, documentaries, and a television movie. Her struggle brought eating disorders into public conversation for the first time. Millions of people who had suffered in silence finally had a name for what they were experiencing. Families learned the warning signs, treatment programs were developed, lives were saved. Today, more than 40 years after her death, Karen Carpenter's music still plays. "We've Only Just Begun" still fills wedding receptions. "Top of the World" still brings smiles. rainy days and Mondays, still comforts people on difficult days. Her voice, soft, warm, pure, remains timeless. But Karen's legacy is bigger than her music. She became a symbol for a disease that had been invisible for too long. Because of her, eating disorders are now recognized, studied, and treated. Because of her, people know it's okay to ask for help. Because of her, countless lives have been saved. Karen Carpenter had everything the world told her should make her happy. She had fame, she had success, she had talent that millions of people admired. She had a family who loved her, but inside, she was fighting a battle that nobody could see. A battle against her own mind. A battle against a disease that told her she was never good enough, never thin enough, never worthy enough. And in the end, that battle took her life. Karen's story reminds us of something important. You can't always see someone's pain. The person who seems happiest might be struggling the most. The person who seems strongest might be breaking inside. If Karen were here today, she would want people to know this. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to admit you're struggling. Eating disorders are not about vanity. They're not about being too sensitive or seeking attention. They are serious, life-threatening illnesses that require treatment, compassion, and understanding. Karen once said in an interview, "I just want people to hear the music and feel something." And they did, they still do. So the next time you hear Close to You, or We've Only Just Begun, or Superstar, remember the woman behind that beautiful voice. Remember her kindness, her talent, her gentleness. Remember that she struggled. Remember that she tried. Remember that she wanted to live. And if you or someone you love is struggling with an eating disorder, please reach out. Talk to someone. Get help. Karen's story doesn't have to be yours. Karen Carpenter's voice may have faded away, but her message lives on. Rest in peace, Karen. Your voice, your story, and your impact will never be forgotten.